This is the story of how a man bought 3 apartments in an unfinished building on Angisa Street. This story will be interesting for those who are wondering how not to get into trouble when buying real estate in Batumi, and not only there, because the situation is more or less the same everywhere, as well as for people who have already gotten into such trouble and are thinking about how to get out of it, because there are a lot of such people, and there are many of them in Batumi. People who bought maybe not in unfinished buildings, but in complexes with low liquidity, and now can't even get back the money they invested. So here's what happened. A man reached out to me and said, "Evgeny, help me sell my property." I asked, "What happened? Why are you selling?" He said, well, the property is stuck. It's an unfinished building. Nothing is being built and so on. I asked, "So how did you buy it? Who recommended it to you?" He said, "Well, I found an ad on the internet and my friend and I just decided to get into this project." He bought 3 apartments and his friend bought about 10 apartments there. Thank God it wasn't through a realtor, because there are some realtors here who could recommend such nonsense, but there aren't many of them on the market. What's the point? Now the person is thinking about how to get rid of this property because he bought a project from a developer who was already in trouble. That is, the project had already been under construction for 6 years at that point. As of today, he's thinking, should he sell this property? He can't. He can't really get his money out of it either. He called the developer, spoke to the director, and they're all promising him that everything will be great, everything will be just fine. The developer isn't finishing this building and has taken on a bunch of other projects that are also barely moving along, to put it mildly. And he has a question, what should I do? I said, well, the solution seems obvious. You need to get rid of this asset as quickly as possible. He says, help me sell it. I said, how am I supposed to help you sell it? I said, so what are you suggesting, that I go and deceive the next people, the next investors, basically tell them that they have to get into this project, but it's a long-term construction, so this investment is illiquid? But what interests me most is the person's doubt, whether to try to sell or not, or to wait. What if it gets finished? What if the price goes up, and so on? He bought this property for $2,000 per square meter. While today the price of comfort class real estate in the same location on Angisa Street is about $1,500 per square meter. Well, let's say $1,600. So what's the point? The person is already down by $500, down by $400 per square meter compared to the price he bought at. He's already at a loss. And the question of whether to sell or not to sell, or to wait until it's finished, is unclear to me in this case, because in any scenario the person is at a loss. So what is there to wait for? Well, I mean, maybe he has his own reasons and so on to wait, to think it over. Maybe everything will be completed. But as someone who crunches the numbers, as someone who helps investors get into good projects, I understand that there's nothing to wait for here. Yes, there are situations when people get stuck in good projects. For example, let's say a project started construction and someone bought in at $2,000 per square meter. The project stalled, for example, construction was put on hold for a year or two, and the person thinks, damn, what should I do? But this project has potential. Suppose someone entered the project and knows for sure that they bought in at 2, and after a certain number of years this project will be worth $4,000, meaning a plus of $2,000, there will definitely be profit in this project. Then it's possible to take this period of time and spread that profit over those years. That is, for example, if the project is on hold for 2 years and then takes another 3 years to build, you could take, say, a total of 5 years, spread the profit over 5 years and see what you get. So over 5 years, what would the annual percentage be? 5, 7, 10, maybe 2, maybe 1. You just need to calculate it. If the return under those conditions of a stalled project suits the person, then basically why not? You can wait too. Because if the project is conceptually strong, if it's interesting, you can always wait out some delays and so on. But in this case, the situation is completely different. How is it different? The thing is the project was already overpriced at the purchase stage, meaning he bought it above market value. And now, waiting for more years makes absolutely no sense. So you just need to exit and get your money back. How do you exit such projects? If we're talking about projects that are illiquid, have no prospects for appreciation and so on, it's best to exit these projects with the help of lawyers or attorneys. If anyone has problems, reach out, I'll help. It's always better to exit right away. There's nothing to wait for in such projects because you'll just waste time. Time is money, your money is just sitting there. And there's another important nuance that many people underestimate. If this developer, as of today, is not yet not bankrupt yet, you still have a chance to get your money back through the courts since they've violated deadlines and so on. The chances are much higher because there are still some assets and you can always recover something. But if you keep waiting longer and longer, there's a high probability that the developer will go bankrupt. And then you'll be the 101st or 201st person they owe money to, and there's no guarantee they'll have enough assets or anything else to settle with you, even through the courts or other means. So if you've made a mistake in life, got involved in a bad project, and realized there's no potential in it, get out, take your money, and don't even think twice. There are actually two types of people. The first type are those who run away from everything at the slightest sign of trouble. That is, if, let's say, a person hears that the developer has even the slightest problems. I've seen these people. They run away barely 6 months after construction starts. You shouldn't do that either. That's not good. And then there's the second type of people. Those who, as in this case, when things are really bad with the developer, the person realizes, yes, I've gotten myself into a mess, but... Or maybe they'll wait, maybe they'll see how things go, maybe something will improve and so on. So that's also an extreme. In other words, it's bad to panic at every minor problem or issue with the developer. And it's just as bad to underestimate future risks. The ideal scenario is when you assess the situation rationally and consider the period during which this project could potentially be delayed. You calculate the profitability figures based on the cost increase you have and make well-considered decisions. Should I wait only if this project is conceptually strong? That is, if it is conceptually strong and there is solid confidence that when it is completed, with the concept, features, infrastructure, and approach that were promised, it will definitely be worth $4,000 to $5,000 per square meter, while I entered at $2,000. And in this case, you simply factor in possible delays, calculate the timeline, and decide whether it's worth exiting or not. For example, you end up with a figure of 3% annual return and realize, why do I even need this? So now, let's say I wait 3 years for it to be completed. And in the end, after breaking down all the profit, you end up with a 3% annual return. It's not interesting at all. That's below the dollar inflation rate. It's easier to just take the money and put it in a bank. Even that would yield more. And sometimes in such projects, you can get a figure like 10% annual return. Or even 15, and then you start thinking, damn, 15% annual return, well, let it sit there. Sure, I won't get the 50 or 60% per year I was hoping for, but 15 to 20 isn't so bad. Where else can I get that kind of money? So this is important information for you. If you have this kind of problem, if you're stuck, or if you have any other questions, write to me and we'll talk. I have plenty of solutions. See you soon.